Okay. The screen is visible, right?
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So let me put it on screen share. Okay. All right, so let's start. So good morning once again, everybody. So today we are on the 5th day of our curriculum, 2nd of May. So we are left with 2 more classes. Let's start with a quick recap of what we did in the last class. All right, so there would be 1 or 2 quizzes which you might try to attempt. So this is what we did in the last class. So let's do a quick quiz. You can unmute and answer. Name the statistical data analysis tools. Do you remember? What were the different statistical data analysis tools that we mentioned in the last class? Or if you are aware, already using them at your work. Anything you remember?
Excel.
Okay. That is Sudeshna?
That's Mitu, ma'am.
Mitu, okay.
Tableau,
Tableau, okay.
Power BI.
Power BI, all right.
Then, SAS.
So it's a business intelligence tool, okay. SAS, okay.
Then SPSS.
SPSS, yes, statistical package. So did anybody
R is the
try
R
any
software.
of this? Sorry, Ram, you mentioned something?
Yeah, R tool, I was saying R tool.
R tool, okay, R software, okay. So did anybody use any of these tools? I'm sure Excel, everybody
Excel,
knows.
ma'am.
Yeah, everybody knows
Excel and SAS BI, because I have access of SAS BI at my organization. I use that.
Okay, so what do you use it for?
Basically, it is just to monitor we have the complete details of the sales pattern, how the market coverage is there, how the product performance is there, which are the top performers and which are the bottom. On that basis, I devise a need-based training program. Like last week, I conducted a complete need-based training program for a modern trade.
Okay.
So it was based on that only.
Wonderful. So that's capturing almost real time, is it?
Real time, absolutely real time.
So you are making use of the machine learning and AI, I guess, the tool.
Yes, it's all the data is recorded in that, and I extract all the data, convert into the customized report, share with the seniors, and of course, more than seniors, I devise the training program. What is the actual problem area, and address that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's already, the data is already been cleansed, and you don't have to really, do a manual intervention to clean up the data, because the tool itself is taking care of that. Right? When we do the data analysis, you have the data collection. After that, you have, Sudeshna is in. So data collection, after that, you have to cleanse the data. So up to cleansing, the tool is anyway taken care of. After that, you have to analyze the data, right? Interpret the data correctly, and then take actions. Wonderful. Anybody using SPSS? Anybody knows SPSS, IBM's? If not, you might want to know about the package, the software package. It's also a very popular one. You can go to the website on, I'll just share the link with you. You can go to the website. I think it will take around 1.5 hours to just know the package. Okay, very elaborately, it is explained on the IBM website. All right, good. So our software, which Ram mentioned, it's an open source tool. Okay, so it does not, most of these tools do not require any kind of coding knowledge, excepting if you make use of big data, Hadoop, it requires little coding experience. But our software or Excel, right, the readily available tools like SPSS and SAS and all, it does not require any kind of coding for a user. Like you are the user, I am the user. For users, there is no coding as such is required. Okay, so these are the names we discussed. So SPSS link is here. Okay, you can probably make a note of this. You can directly go to their website and you would be able to take up this particular course. All right.
Madam, please come to that slide again. Please come to that slide again.
Right, okay. Yes. Rapid Miner, ClickView, Minitab. These are the additional ones. Talent, MATLAB. MATLAB is very old. Okay, I think, in the times when we were discussing or probably we were reading about Fortran, MATLAB, somewhere in 1990s, MATLAB was there. So it's very old. It's very easy, very, very easy. All right. So what are the 4 types of data analysis? Where do you start? You have got the data. In order to do a dip stick into what you want to extract from the data, okay, to you, what the data should have, what kind of data you should get. So what is the first type of data analysis?
Data collection.
Data collection is the first step. But in order to have a detailed understanding about the data, so what is
interpretation? Data interpretation.
That is the data interpretation. That is again the step, data analysis step. So what kind of data categorization? Again, these are the steps. Types. I'm asking about the types. Predominantly, there are 4 types. Four types of data are there. Hear me out well. In order to take a decision, the data needs to be dash. Fill up the blank.
Measurable.
All right. What else? That is outcome. You have
descriptive.
Very good. You have to have sufficient data in order to take a decision. So data needs to be real time. That's what Aprajit mentioned, right? That, you need to have data. I asked, right? So the data is really real time. So the data has to be descriptive in nature and it has to be real time. Okay, so that's one type of data analysis. It's not a step, it's a type. Okay, then what is the other type? After you have got the data, what will you do with the data?
You will analyze
root cause
it.
analysis.
Analyze it. Identify the problem
Exactly.
areas.
The other word is root cause you mentioned. So another type is called diagnostic. Diagnosis. You will do a diagnosis, right? So in this diagnosis, you will actually have to do a root cause. What is the reason? Why this is happening? These are the questions. We all know 5W and 2H. So while you do a dipstick, while you do a deeper dive about why this is happening, why the trend is like this, what can happen? So what can happen is what? What can happen?
Prediction, future prediction.
Predictive. So the right word in data analytics or data analysis type is predictive analytics. Okay, so the third type is predictive analytics. Anybody is waiting in the waiting room? Okay. So, so third type is predictive analytics. Now, after this, what happens? Now that you have understood, okay, probably this can happen, how will you try to avoid it? So that how will you try to avoid it is what? What is the fourth type?
Prescriptive.
Then you will write certain things. You will arrive at certain things. Okay, this needs to be done. This needs to be taken
Action
care
plan.
of.
Ma'am, I
Action.
This
think,
needs to be
Action
avoided.
plan.
ma'am, I'm sorry.
Action planning.
I think
Action
Nina is
plan.
waiting.
Who is waiting?
But,
Nina.
Okay. I thought Ashok ji is admitting. Okay. All right.
action plan will be there.
Yeah. So
Corrective action.
okay. So corrective action plan. That's exactly the prescriptive analytics. These are the 4 different types of data analytics. We need not follow one after another. It can be all done together at the same time also, basis on what the situation is. All right. So these are the 4 types of data analysis. Now, some of you were mentioning about the steps in data analysis. So it starts obviously with data collection. After data collection is what? You have to cleanse the data. Okay, so you might have got a lot of redundancies. You might have got something, full of errors. You want to ensure that your data is precise, your data is accurate. Otherwise, it will lead to wrong decisions. You would have spent 10 days, 15 days, you would have invested on additional resources. When I say resources, it can be manpower. It can be money, right? So 10 days, time, effort, these are all additional resources you are investing in order to come up with some kind of concrete information. Data gives you what? When some processing happens on the data, it gives you information. So there is a difference between data and information. Data is the raw format. You process the data and you get information, right? If the data itself at the input stage is wrong, it's not accurate, it is not being validated, okay? Then what happens? You are doing the processing, you are getting an output which is not valid, which is completely full of errors. So all the resources, time, money, machine, resources like in the form of effort, everything goes to the drains. Okay, so now after you have cleansed the data, now you have to do some kind of inspection. So cleaning and inspection is going hand in hand, all right? Then you have got a structured format of data, okay? Something which you can rely on. And once you have got a data which you can rely on, you can start interpreting the data. In the last class, we discussed about certain problems. While we were solving the problems, at the same time, we were doing the data interpretation, which is a very crucial stage of data analysis. If you remember, we discussed about, we will delve into that because that was just first part of the problem. We will do the second part of the problem also today. So we spoke about the shared resources. We found out that one person is given one task and he is doing that complete task out of 40 hours. I think around 30 hours is taking to do just one task. So how do you increase the shared capacity and how do you increase the efficiency of that individual, right? So if the interpretation of the data is not correct, you won't be able to take decisions. So like Aparajit mentioned that the SAS tool is giving him the data and then he has to interpret the data accurately. He might be taking the benefit of his manager experience, also, the MD's experience to arrive at certain interpretation of that data, what he's able to extrapolate from that tool. And then he's able to make decisions. Okay, so now I think this particular person or this group of people need this kinds of training. And therefore, he will be rolling out the training programs, right? And then we again have to see the measures, the hard measures and the soft measures. In one of the classes, we discussed about what are the hard measures. Something which is directly measurable can be directly connected to money. And there are some other measures which you cannot directly relate to the revenue or the profitability. But you will definitely have certain sub measures to map it to get there. So you cannot ignore the soft measures which are not measurable. You have to consider them because they will have certain other sub measures to be measured, which ultimately collectively will lead them to the measurement of those soft measures. Okay, so this is how it is all connected in this complete chain of training evaluation, right? Okay, so let's move on. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
If not, yeah. Okay, so let's move on. So we have discussed this. Today, we are again going to solve the continuation of that problem. So this was the problem that we were discussing before we wrapped up in the last class. Okay, so how do you calculate? You have pen and paper? Please bring a pen and paper in front of you.
Yes.
How do you calculate resource utilization, resource sharing ratio? Okay, so if 40 hours of time is recorded in a week, but 30 hours was clocked in by an employee for one task, what is the utilization percentage? This we already solved. This is the formula, and this is what we found. Now we have to interpret the data. So 30 hours he's taking to solve to attend to one task out of the total hours in a week, 40 hours. Now the management has definitely got a data that the best possible time to do this particular task, when I say time, the number of hours, to finish this complete one particular task, it could be ranging between 15 to 20 hours. But this person is taking 30 hours to do just that particular task, one task. So 75% of the time that he has in hand is being utilized to just do one task. So the spare capacity only remaining is 25%. So now the management takes a call that we have to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of this individual. Okay, he's having good experience. He's having a good background. He's having the capacity. He's having the potential, right? So you will take a call basis on a lot of other parameters, right? And then we want to increase his, the capacity, increase his productivity, right? And therefore, what happens is the management decides to make him attend goal setting program, effective delegation program, time management program, accountability programs. So this person, he attends these 4 training sessions. Not just training, management also decides to move him to a learning path. Now, when I say learning path, it can involve deep learning. It can involve coaching. It can involve certain certification programs. It can involve mentoring. So there could be different interventions that you can have in order to bring up that guy to a particular level or expectation, right? So now post-training, it has been found that if 40 hours of time is recorded in a week, which is standard, but 20 hours was clocked in, which means that his efficiency has improved. He is investing lesser time. Earlier pre-training, it was 75% time. Now he's just investing 50% of the time, 20 by 40. So what is the spare capacity? The spare capacity is 50%.
50%.
Absolutely. So now this person can be given additional equivalent important task.
So
right?
in terms of, madam, for interpretation's sake, madam, can you come to the previous slide? In bracket, you have mentioned spare capacity. This is spare capacity instead of what is the, what we can say, time, standard time, he has consumed more time. So it's a spare capacity or underutilization?
So
My point is that.
75, yes, I'll tell you. Very good point. Very, very good observation. So he is being underutilized. Because if I mentioned one key point, right, that management has already done their groundwork, finding out that this particular task will take actually 15 to 20 hours. So the people who are able to finish this task in 15 to 20 hours, they're parallelly doing other important tasks. So they are being utilized properly within that 40 hours only.
Right.
So this particular person is underutilized, in other words. So management has to take a call how we can utilize him better. And therefore, we have to increase the productivity of the person. Productivity is nothing but within certain time span, how much more he is able to deliver.
How fast and
Right?
how accurate? How fast and accurate?
Absolutely. So productivity is not just in terms of quantity. Productivity is not just in terms of number of units that he is able to produce within 1 hour. Person A, he is able to produce 10 units in 1 hour. Okay. Another person is able to produce 15 units in 1 hour, but there are a lot of defects in those units. Vis-a-vis to the person A, who is able to take care of the product while he is generating or producing that 10 units, right? So now, full of defects, but more number of quantity. No defects, with lesser, comparatively lesser. I'm not saying 5 and 15, but 10 and 12, or maybe 12 and 15. Okay, comparatively lesser. Okay, errors. I mean, no errors, but lesser number of units, right? So you will definitely consider person A to be more effective than person B, because errors again you have to attend, right? There's a wastage of raw material. There's a wastage of 1 hour. There's a wastage of the effort of the individual. The machinery has been used, but it has given errors, right? So we have to ensure that product is good, quality is good, quantity is achieved. All right.
Morning, ma'am.
Okay.
Nina here.
Yes.
Ma'am,
Yes, Nina.
I have a question on the same slide, the previous slide, ma'am. When you said
Okay.
in the bracket that it said that spare capacity is 25%, which includes the errors also that have been counted in it. Ma'am, how can you measure the error? How would you measure the errors, ma'am?
Spare capacity of individual.
Okay.
Here in this case, we are talking about resource as individual.
Okay. So let's say if there is
individual.
Go ahead, ma'am. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, individual, time, and completing one particular task. These are the only 3 variables here.
Okay. Got it, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So spare capacity in terms of the utilization. So he is only left with 25% time to do any task. And he cannot do any task which is equally important within that 25% capacity which is left. Okay. All right. So now post-training, we have seen this. So what it means by the formula that he is taking lesser time now to do that particular task. So available capacity. So when I say spare capacity, available capacity, in other words, for your clarification. Okay, so available capacity to be again utilized for equivalent important task is another 50%. All right. So now management can think of what kind of work he is good at and will assign those tasks. So again, effective delegation can work over there because you are improving the efficiency at some level, and you are effectively delegating tasks which this guy can handle well enough. Okay, and he can fully utilize that remaining available 50% capacity. Okay, so this is resource management as well. All right. So now what is interpretation post-training? The resource is efficiently delivering on one task. The spare capacity is also increased. And so the resource can be assigned to other important tasks simultaneously, such that the overall efficiency improves. So this is just one of the measures of finding the training effectiveness or efficacy, right? Now, there are other measures as well. We will see what are those. Now, these are the different formulae which you can have for measuring the labor productivity. So labor productivity is not just about number of units. It is also about what is the value in terms of currency a function has achieved. So I have an example here, pre-training and post-training. Okay, so our training has happened. Now we can take the same example.
Waiting.
I just allowed Rashmi, I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so if you consider two scenarios, okay, so pre and post, with the training that we just mentioned, that this individual has attained, so now it's been scaled up, right? You have now 20 workers. So 1 to 20, okay? So pre-training, this 20 people were able to generate a revenue of $1,10,000, right? And this they were able to achieve in 4 months. Number of working days per month is 22. Number of working hours per day is 8 hours. So what is the total man hours? 8 into 22 into 4.
176.
Okay, so wait, so 8 into 22 into 4, total man hours into 20. What is the calculation?
14080.
No, 1 minute. How did you get that? What is the breakup?
Madam, it is 8 into 22 multiplied by 4.
Per month into number of months. So 4 months. So 704 man hours.
704, yeah, right.
Man hours, right?
With number of employees.
Yeah. So now now we are trying to find out per person productivity. Okay, so the formula here is, if you see the top one, output per man hour is equal to output. Here we are considering the value divided by man hours used, 704. So what is the total value? Total value in terms of the currency or the revenue achieved is 1,10,000. So 1,10,000 divided by the total man hours. This is the formula for per person productivity.
Right, madam.
Okay, so now this is a pre-training score. Now post-training score, we have seen the difference is when it was taking 4 months to achieve that value, it is taking now 3 months to achieve that, not that value, more value. Here the number of workers is constant. So there's an improvement in the efficiency. Number one, value has increased. Number of workers remained the same. And the time that we take to achieve that value is also reduced. So labor productivity increased. Okay, and what is the delta increase? Delta increase is almost 82% pre and post training.
So madam, in terms of data interpretation, if I say to top management, so training has been very effective and relevant. So continue with all the training programs. Am I right, madam?
Absolutely.
If I have to put my perspective.
Yes. So when in the last session, do you remember we were also speaking about data modeling? Yes, data modeling is one of the steps not types, steps in data analysis, right? So how is the type is also linked? See, type and steps, it's all linked here. So you did a descriptive analytics here because you had to do a deep dive, getting a lot of information, data process, and you get information. You are also working on the diagnostics. What went right? What did not go right? Not everything is very, flowery, right? I mean, you definitely will see that there are certain things which did not go right. You expected something, you did not achieve that. Definitely it will be there. Not all trainings are 200% successful. In this case also you see 80% improvement, fine, but somewhere it might have gone wrong something. So we need to find out. Again, we are doing a diagnosis, right?
Another interpretation will be is that delta is 82%, but management foresee it has to be the 100%. Still a gap of 18%. Does it mean that also?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Still there is a gap. Still there is a gap.
Still there is a gap. In the next, so that will come in the recommendation. So if you have understood like what is the reason for not achieving to the fullest, right? What were the gaps? So again, we have to do a root cause. Where it went wrong. What can be done? So what can be done is nothing but prescriptive. What can be done is nothing but prescriptive. So you will write down your action items, action planning, right? Predictive also comes into picture for the reason that you might want to, again, take a decision whether you will continue. If you don't, what can happen? If you do, what more can happen? So those things, those kinds of questions, again, 5W and 2H. Okay, so that remains throughout. Okay, so now while you are following the steps, right? Data interpretation and then data presentation, visualization, interpretation, and presentation. In the presentation, as Aparajit mentioned, you have to now present in the form of connecting the different dots. Now, this is just one example, right? Now, data modeling has to come into picture, which is something like, you are connecting different nodes, and holistically, you are then presenting it to the management. Then management can come back and say, okay, can you explain, can you get into the deeper aspects of that particular node? When I say node means it can be a different paradigm that you are trying to connect the dots, right? Get there, and then can you explain more about that? So that's, getting deeper into one particular node, right? So that's what is also data modeling, which will come into picture. So management will not just see the overview. They might get deeper into each and every, I would say, areas, how you put them together to get this data. Right? So if I take a very live example, today is the election results which are coming out in 4 states and 1 union territory. Now, if you follow one channel, news channel, okay, it's real time. They are capturing everything real time in all the 4 states, right? The big screen will show a summary. These are the parties, these are the counts. And if you just see one screen, you will see Tamil Nadu, you will see Kerala, you will see Bengal, you will see Puducherry, and then it's flipping between 2 states in one of the bars, Kerala or Assam. Now, I go to the all the polling booths of Bengal. So there can be 200, 300, 400 polling booths, more than that maybe. And I go to Midnapur. I'm saying one district, okay? So that's one node. I go to Midnapur, it's one of the districts, and I see what's happening over there. So I just press that button over there, and it gives a bigger picture of these are the parties, these are the plus, these are the minuses, these are the vote numbers, counts. So you get you do a deep dive into a particular node, and you generate the data. You pull up the data, extrapolate the data, you present the data. Right? But again, on the bigger screen, you get a summarized information. That is what is, I'm talking about the overview presentation. And when I go to the individual nodes, and do a deep dive. That is what is the tree structure. You are going to the branches, you are going to the sub branches, right? But then ultimately you are putting it together. Ultimately, a tree, it's just one element. So you have to just put it together and present the overview of the entire picture. Did you get that?
Yes, ma'am.
What about others? I'm waiting to hear from Ram, Sudeshna. Okay, cool. So I'll proceed then. Okay. Okay, so I will paste this in the chat box. You can also view it later. Let me just run it now. Are you able to see the video?
No, ma'am, not
Oh,
right
no.
now.
Ma'am, not yet. No, ma'am.
Oh,
No, ma'am.
okay, okay. Let me stop share.
Hi there. Is all about how much.
Now, is it audible and visible?
Now we can see, ma'am.
Now we
Here
can see.
also? Here
Yes,
also?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
employee in a business produces. Now, of course, that can be measured in different ways, and typically labour productivity either looks at the volume of output measured in units produced by each employee, or occasionally the value measured in currency, in pound notes or dollars, produced by each employee in the business. We'll focus in this revision workshop on perhaps the most popular measure of labour productivity, which is a volume or output measure. The reason why labour productivity is an important measure of operational as well as HR performance in a business is that whenever you look at the cost structure of business, you usually find that labour and the labour costs is a big part of it. And therefore, the overall profitability or return of the business and the efficiency of the business is often very closely linked to how productive the labour force are. Of course, the key link to remember is that unit costs are directly linked to labour productivity, and therefore, in order to remain competitive, a business needs to do all it can to keep its unit costs under control. A quick illustration of how you calculate labour productivity and how productivity can improve as output increases and the number of employees increases. A little table here that shows the number of employees, what their costs are, and what their outputs are. Just doing some calculations. If you divide the output in units, for example, top line there, 2,000 outputs, 2,000 units, divided by the number of employees, that's 200 units per employee. And if you move all the way down to, let's have a look at the line, 40 employees, their costs are 4 times as much there as it would have been with 10 employees, because there's 4 times as many employees. But the output is significantly higher. At that stage, because of however the business has been organised, you're getting 500 units of output per employee. That's a much more productive level of labour productivity. And another calculation you can do is to take all the labour costs there and divide them by the output of units to work out what the labour cost per unit is. And we can see this example. So with 40 employees, if they can achieve 20,000 units of output, then the labour cost per unit is 20, which is significantly lower than the less productive level of just 2,000 outputs from 10 employees. That's just an example of how unit costs, and in particular labour cost per unit, can change depending on the different productivity levels of the labour force. And the key thing to remember about labour productivity is that link between the productivity rate, usually measured in terms of output per unit or output per employee, and labour costs. Now, there are a variety of factors that will influence the level of labour productivity. Not all of these will apply in every business, of course.
So I'll just pause here. This is a very important slide. Now, improvement in the value, right? So when you saw in the previous slide, we were discussing about the overall output versus the input in terms of individual productivity, right? Now the value increase, that is from $110,000 to $150,000. That's what we saw. We cannot just completely give the credit to only the training. So training is definitely an important strategic intervention which helped in improving the productivity of the individuals, all 20 people, right? But there are other important factors which influence the productivity. So this is what they have mentioned here. So you might want to consider this as well.
But let's just pick out one or two of the most important here from this list on the screen. Of course, it's always important to make a link between an operational measure like labour productivity and human resource management, and in particular, the ability of the business to train and to look after and motivate its workforce, particularly a workforce if it's skilled and is a key part of having a quality product. Similarly, the way in which production or operations are organised will clearly have a significant influence on the rate of labour productivity. And let's have a look at one more. Let's have a look at the top one there, the extent and quality of fixed assets. Labour will often be more productive if the business has invested significantly in the latest machinery or facilities that enable employees to be much more productive at work. IT systems, I guess, being perhaps one of the very best examples of that. Quick look, therefore, at how you calculate labour productivity. If you get a calculation question, what's the formula that you want to use? Well, the way to do it is to look for the top line, which is going to be the output, how much output in units has been produced. And then you want to be dividing that by the number of employees who were at work, the number of employees who could have made that output over that period. And it's usually expressed, don't forget, with all these calculations, make sure you get the units right. It's usually expressed in terms of units per employee per period. Let's have a look at a simple example. Precision Plastics, sounds like a plastics manufacturer, makes 10,000 units each week and employs 14 staff in the factory. How would you calculate labour productivity? Well, we're looking at a volume measure there, aren't we? And it's very simple. That's 10,000 units, 14 employees. That must mean, on average, that's 714 units per employee. And of course, not every employee will make that many. Not every employee will necessarily be actually involved in manufacture. So labour productivity is just an overall measure of the overall productivity of the workforce. One of the key things also to consider is how you might improve labour productivity. What happens, for example, with a business that maybe has got lower levels of labour productivity than its competitors? In theory, of course, as we've mentioned before, that may leave the business at a unit cost disadvantage. So it needs to do something about it. Typically, it's not an easy task, but it involves a variety of measures, not the least being making sure that the working conditions are right, that production is organised efficiently, that the employees are sufficiently well trained, know what they're trying to do, and have the equipment and the facilities to be able to do their job properly. But of course, another way of improving labour productivity is to look at ways of either removing or reducing the requirement for labour. And of course, a key concept there is automation. Particularly, perhaps one of the best examples there is the increasingly wide use of robotics to replace some elements of the labour force, of the human labour force in operations. So there are lots of different ways to improve labour productivity, but none of them are easy. They all take a little bit of time and planning. One of the problems, of course, if you're trying to increase labour productivity, is that you're going to come across some resistance. Employees, particularly where it involves automation, perhaps inevitably and certainly understandably, are somewhat reluctant to see their jobs changed or disappear in return for giving a job to a robot. And of course, it's possible that employees may say, well, look, our productivity is improving and therefore we actually want to be paid more per unit. So you have to be careful of not having unintended consequences of your strategy to improve labour productivity. There we go. That's just a brief introduction there.
Okay. So this is one. Any questions here in this particular video? I think it was self-explanatory.
Would you be able to share the link, ma'am?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do it towards the end because it's not capturing. 1 minute. Let me just see if it's capturing. One minute.
Affinda offers the highest quality resume parser at the best price. Try it free at affinda.com.
All right. Send. Okay.
Thank
Yeah, welcome. Okay, let's move on. Screen is visible. Calculate the productivity for the following operations. Screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, so there are two scenarios here. Calculate the productivity for following operations. 3 employees process 600 insurance policies in a week. They work 8 hours per week. Per day, 5 days per week. Okay. Our team of workers makes 400 units of a product, which is sold in the market for, this is another problem. So let's do the first one. We'll come back to the second one later. So can any one of you tell me what is the answer? Calculate the productivity for the following operations. 3 employees process 600 insurance policies in a week. They work 8 hours per day, 5 days in a week. What is the productivity? Three employees process 600 insurance policies in a week.
200 per person.
On an average.
200.
Yes, 200. Yes.
Okay.
Answer for AA.
So that is output
Yes.
per week, right?
So this is the answer. 3 employees process 600 insurance policies in a week. They work 8 hours per day, 5 days per week. So output is total 600 insurance policies. Input is 8 into 5 into 3. So 120 hours is invested by total 3 people per week. Productivity is 5 policies per hour on an average per employee, per hour we are calculating. Per hour, what is the number of insurance policies sold?
So our requirement is per hour policies they have generated.
Right.
Or they have taken. Right.
They have sold or whatever.
Sold, yeah.
Yeah, insurance. Yeah, okay. So this is what is the calculation. Now in the problem B, a team of workers makes 400 units of a product, okay, which is sold in the market for $10 each. The accounting department reports that for this job, the actual costs are $400 for labor, $1,000 for materials, $300 for overheads. So cost is nothing but the input. So we have to add up all this. Output is what? In terms of money, 400 units into 10 each. So $4,000. Productivity is output by input, roughly 2.4. So the interpretation is important here. For every dollar we are investing, so we are investing, cost is $1,700. For every dollar we are investing in this system, we should be able to generate $2.4 as an output. That's the multiplication. So the output should be more. Okay, the cost is this much. productivity is 2.4 times, we should generate the output. Is it clear?
I'm not following, ma'am.
For every dollar we invest, for 1 rupee you invest, you should be able to get 2.4 times minimum.
1 rupee is our break even, and to generate a profit, we must earn 2.4.
We should increase it by 2.4 times at least. At least. Is it clear? So ideally, if you see, remember in the video, there was a small graph. The second slide. When productivity is increased, the cost should increase or decrease?
Decrease.
Come back again. I couldn't hear.
Decrease.
Decrease.
Increase or decrease?
Decrease.
Ideally, it should be that, right?
Okay.
Why we are increasing the productivity? Because we want to reduce the cost.
Higher the productivity, lower is the cost. More productivity, lower is the cost.
Yes. So more cost means you have to work on the productivity. You have to improve the efficiency so that the cost reduces. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with the same logic here as well. Okay, we have to increase the productivity so that the cost 1700 is reduced and we are generating more output.
Ma'am, I understood the second problem. The first one, I had lost connection. Could you please take us through that again?
Okay, so here we are trying to find out the productivity of each individual, how many they are able to sell, how many insurance policies they are able to sell in 1 hour duration, because this is what will give you the measure of productivity in a stipulated time frame. So we are trying to measure within 1 hour how many policies are being sold on an average by each employee. Are you able to relate now?
Ma'am, but it is just saying that you have to measure the productivity. So whenever there is whenever they ask
How will
to
you
measure
measure
the
productivity?
productivity, so
How
it
will
has
you
to be
measure
per hour, per person.
It has to be a particular period of time. Do you remember the formulas what we discussed a couple of slides back?
Yeah.
Units produced in a particular time span.
Okay.
All right. So unit produced in 1 hour. I mean, in this case, number of policies sold in 1 hour.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Now, previous slides we spoke about what? Human as a resource, worker as a resource, labor as a resource. Now we are talking about space as a resource. So when I say space, it can take the form of office, factory, a unit, a desk, not our desk, but desks, right? You have a 500 square feet area or 10,000 square feet area. There are multiple desks. So how will you find out the productive capacity utilization of that resource? Okay, so space utilization or capacity utilization. For example, what we have mentioned here, assume a plant's actual production is 5,500 units a month. Actual production, this is what actually it is producing. Although the potential is 1,000 units a month. That's the potential, that's the maximum that it can actually produce. But it's actually producing what? In reality, 500. Again, you see the span, time, 1 month, okay, in both the cases. Calculate the factory's utilization percentage. To calculate factory's utilization percentage, this is the formula. Actual divided by potential into 100 because it's percent. Okay, so 500 by 1,000 into 100, which is 50% only is been utilized. The previous examples, we spoke about person over there. Now we are talking about space. So the factory is just being 50% utilized. So it's underutilized. In other words,
50% space utilization or capacity utilization.
capacity is only the space, no? Here
Okay,
in this
fine.
case. Huh?
Fine.
So, yeah. So it is underutilized.
Right.
You are renting. Imagine if it's bought, then you have bought it for what? You have to achieve a break even. There's a payback period. We will discuss about all that. So how fast you can achieve that break even? How fast you can ensure that if you have spent 10 rupees, you are getting back that 10 rupees at least. Do you want to wait for 3 years to get back that 10 rupees, or do you want to have 3 months to get back that 10 rupees? Right? So that's the break even and that's the payback period. Okay, so how you can now increase the capacity? I would say capacity is same. How you can increase the utilization percentage or utilization rate. Rate is per hour, per minute. So when I say per minute, if I take the current example, right, we are talking about oxygen concentrators. We're talking about increasing the capacity. There are certain places where they are thinking of, say, installing 5 big concentrators, which will in turn, where you can draw the oxygen and supply elsewhere as well. But it would be a production capacity. Okay, so 5 places you have identified, 5 big concentrators will be installed. And what they have actually said that each minute it would be able to generate X MT metric tons of oxygen each minute. So that's what is the capacity utilization rate. Rate is per minute. It is going to generate X amount of MT metric tons of oxygen, right? So that's what is the utilization of those 5 units, right? So likewise, if it is generating 50%, then again, state government or government will decide how more we can increase the capacity, how more we can increase the utilization rate, right? So in this example, factory or machineries are underutilized. Only 50% is utilized. That is, in other words, operational inefficiency. In the previous example, we spoke about human productivity. We spoke about inefficiency and how do we increase the efficiency. That's again operational inefficiency. Okay, so here also with the space, it's again operational inefficiency. Assess the demand and do the capacity plan. Exactly what we are doing currently, what the government, state government, central government is doing currently. Oxygen, understand the demand and do the capacity planning and increase the rate. Increase the rate. So that's what is the, the only and sole target to meet the population of, 1.3 million, right? You have to increase the rate of production. Okay, so that's what is the demand and the supply and the capacity planning. All right.
Madam,
Any
here
questions here?
Madam, in the current example, what we have shown, we are also losing on the opportunity cost point of view also, because here the utilization is only 50%.
Absolutely. So the cost that I was mentioning, right? You are, if you have rented the place, if the place is on lease, right? You are anyway increasing the cost, but you are producing only 50%. When you are producing, which means you're actually been able to sell also low, right? So when the selling is low, are you able to achieve your targets, company's profitability? So immediately you have to make the capacity plan in such a way so that you are able to fully utilize this place or the machinery and generate more so that more cash inflow is there. And the delta between the cash inflow and the cash outflow is increased. That's what again the measure. right? And once the measure is you have received in hand, you would be able to evaluate it's going well, it's not going well, right? Okay. Now we will play one more video, which is about the capacity utilization. Let me share one minute. Stop share. Okay, are you
Hi there.
see the screen now?
Let's take a look at how you calculate capacity utilization.
Yes, ma'am.
To start with, a
Yes,
brief
ma'am.
reminder, what do we mean by capacity? Well, capacity is a measure of output. It's a measure of how much output a business could potentially achieve over a given period. And there are lots of different ways you can measure capacity. But the key thing is it's a measure of potential output, the maximum output. So, for example, a fast food outlet might be able to serve 1,000 customers per hour based on how many stations it has, how many staff it has working. A call centre might be able to handle a certain number of calls per day, assuming all the staff are in and they're all available to take calls. And similarly, a great example, of course, is a football stadium where the capacity is to a large extent fixed by the number of seats that can be sold for each match. So capacity is a measure of output. Capacity utilization is a percentage. So it's a percentage calculation, and what it does, it compares the actual output that is produced or used compared with the potential. So capacity utilization, you clearly need to know both the actual output but also the capacity, the potential output. We calculate capacity utilization as a percentage, and the way we calculate it is to first divide the actual level of output in units divided by that potential output, the capacity, also in units. That gives us a number. We multiply that by 100 to give us a percentage, a proportion of potential capacity that is actually used. So let's have a quick look at 2 or 3 examples of this calculation in action so you can see the different ways in which capacity utilization can be asked. We've got a small case study here. It's a manufacturer of dog food. Wolf Dog Foods has one production line and it can make a maximum of 100,000 cans of dog food per week. So there's our measure of capacity. It's the potential output over a specified period. In this case, 100,000 cans per week. That's a lot of dog food. Last week, we're told total production or actual production was 87,000 cans. So the first question is, what was the capacity utilization? Pause the video if you wish and have a go at calculating it, then we'll have a look at the answer. Well, of course, we've got most of the information that we need here, haven't we? In fact, all of it. We're told the actual output of 87,000 cans. We're told the potential, i.e. the capacity of 100,000. So we simply divide 87,000 by 100,000 and multiply it by 100. And if we do that, it comes out as 87%. In other words, Wolf Dog Foods is operating below its potential capacity and it has spare capacity, the difference between actual utilization and 100% of 13%, doesn't it? It could operate, if it was making 100,000 cans each week, it will be operating at 100% capacity utilization. But it's working at 13% lower than that, 87% capacity utilization. Let's just change the example slightly. We're still with Wolf Dog Foods, but now we're told good news in the dog food industry. Wolf Dog Foods has increased its capacity to 150,000 cans per week. And it's done this by adding an extra production shift. If the capacity utilization last week was 90%, how many cans did it make based on this new capacity? Have a go at doing the calculation and then pause the video and see if you get the question right. Well, let's have a look at the answer. We're given the some of the information. We're given the potential output, the capacity of 150,000, and we're told that the utilization figure was 90%. So we have to work out what the actual output was. Well, in this case, what we do is we take the potential 150%, 150,000 cans. we're told the actual output was 90% of that. So 150,000 times by 0.9 or times by 90%. That comes out at 135,000 cans of dog food. So that's how many cans Woof Dog Foods made last week at a 90% utilization rate based on a capacity of 150,000 cans. One final example just to show you the different ways in which capacity utilization can be asked. A bit more information. Woof has expanded rapidly with a new range of organic dog food. It now plans to produce 500,000 cans, 500,000 cans per week, and it's planning a capacity utilization of 95%. So it wants the actual output to be 500,000 cans per week at a utilization of 95%. What capacity will it need to achieve this? Have a go at working out the answer. And if you've had a go, let's have a look at the answer. Well, we're told the actual output is going to be 500,000 cans per week. That's the plan. We're told that the utilization needs to be 95%. In other words, we're going to need to have more capacity than 500,000. How do we calculate the potential or the needed capacity? Well, it's 500,000 divided by 0.95 or divided by 95%, which comes out at 526,316 cans. So hopefully you can see how that was just a slight variation there in the data given, but you were still calculating capacity utilization.
All right. So I'm just placing it on the chat box. Any questions here?
No, ma'am.
Now in current situation, it's all about demand, capacity planning, capacity replanning, how to increase the capacity and meet the demands, right? And all of that is happening. We have live examples happening in India currently. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, I would suggest at your spare time, you can always refer this sheet, Excel sheet, beautifully done actually. This is a monthly team capacity planning, capacity and demand. Okay, so I'll just place it on the chat. It's actually a long video. You can share, you can see it at spare time. Okay. Now, can anybody tell me why we might need this Excel sheet, this monthly team capacity planning sheet? How is it related to the training? Yes, any thoughts? Any thoughts?
How well we have used our resources and what needs to be done if there's a performance gap or underutilization of capacity. So what as a training team or trainer I can contribute to enhance that capacity.
Wonderful, wonderful. Any other thoughts?
In fact, I'll be identifying the problem areas and will be suggesting the action plan. I won't restrict to my...
Very, very good. Lot of data can be extrapolated through this.
Right.
A lot of decision makings can be done by the kind of data you are able to see in front of you. Wonderful. Okay, so we discussed about this as an assignment last time, AEIOU model. How many of you have done this so that we can discuss? Aparajit, you have raised your hand, is it?
No, madam, no, madam. I have not done it.
Okay. Anybody who has done this?
Ma'am, I just did like I was just going. I didn't attend the class, but then through the video, I got to know about this model. Ma'am, is this model mainly for conflict resolution? Because when I was looking it up on Google, it was giving me only research about.
Your voice is not very clear, Ranina.
Sorry, ma'am, I've got a very bad cold, and that's the reason I
So
probably.
now it's audible.
Okay, so I was looking up this model on Google, and most of it, whatever I was finding, was on conflict resolution, and mainly for that. Is the model for that, ma'am?
No. This is one of the models for training, measurement, and evaluation.
Okay.
Like the way we have the Brinkerhoff, Anderson, Cyro, right? Same. I would say it's not same, but yes, it adds value in the overall training, measurement, and evaluation. All right. So there are two other models, rather approaches, which is the action, research, and appreciative inquiry approach, which we will discuss not today, but in maybe next class or the last class, the revision class. Okay, so it would be suggestive that you read through this AEIOU, appreciative inquiry, as well as action research. These are all part of training, measurement, and evaluation. All right, so you can come prepared in the next class, or maybe in the last class, we will do a revision, quick revision. Okay, I won't take it up now. Okay, so we will quickly move on with other aspects of data analysis. We were discussing about the payback period. I gave a small example that 10 rupees, if you have incurred as a cost, is it that you will wait for 3 years to get that 10 rupees to achieve a break even? Or you would want to get that in 3 months or maybe 3 days? 10 rupees is a small amount. If that is the case, then 3 days, right? If it's multiplied by 10,000, then you can wait for 3 months or 3 years. So practically, if I take 10 rupees as an example, will you be able to achieve it in get the return in 3 days time or not? So what is the payback period? So I've given an example here. Payback period is total cost divided by monthly benefit. Okay, so number of months over which benefits are calculated is, of course, in a year, 12 months. Total benefits, we have given an example here, 81,500. So what is the monthly benefit? A simple calculation. Total benefit is 81,500. Total number of months that we have is 12 months. So what is monthly benefit?
6791.66.
6791.
Okay. Okay. And the total cost, okay. And the total cost is what? 15K.
15,000.
Now, if you place on the formula, payback period. Is this what you get?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a simple calculation of payback period. Okay. So now we have one more scenario where we are trying to find out the business impact, ROTI percentage, return on training investment. This is what is the fifth layer of Patricia Phillip, Jack Phillip, right? ROTI model, ROI or ROTI, in other words, because return on investment, we saw it's not just applicable for training. It is applicable for any and all function. Okay, so in respect of training, it is ROTI. So if gains in business performance have resulted in a financial benefit of £5,000, and it is estimated that the training program is responsible for 50% of change in performance. The other 50% is contributing to other factors that we saw in one of the videos, right? Then the total financial benefit attributable to the training is how much? So this is the ROTI percentage, benefits minus cost by cost into 100. All right, so if we go with this formula for this particular scenario,
So 50%.
The answer is this. Have you got the answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I just did 50% of 5,000.
Okay, wonderful. Now, next problem is a little complicated one. This is the real-time scenario. This is a real case, I would say. Okay. Now, all the scenarios what we were discussing previously are also real time. I mean, these are what we actually hear or work on, right? This is a typical example that a training has been arranged to, reduce the number of grievances, which earlier, before the training, management and consultants, it used to go, huge number of grievances used to go to them. And consultants used to charge for every grievance that they used to resolve. So post-training, they wanted to see that the number of grievances which go to the consultants and to the top management is much, much less. So they can save the cost. There would be cost saving from the consultant angle, right? There would be a time saving from the top management angle, and there would be more efficiency at the below levels. So when I say below levels, first it used to go to the manager, then used to go, we have a grievance handling. Every organization is having a grievance handling escalation matrix, right? So you will have the manager, then you will have the HR. If it is not resolved, then it will go to the HR. It is not resolved, it will go to the next layer, and then the external consultants, right? So now, pre-training, lot of these grievances were just used to be unresolved at manager level, HR level. It directly used to go, most of them used to go to top management and consultants. Post-training, we see that it's very less now at the top layer, management and consultant. Most of them are getting resolved at the manager level and HR manager. So this is the pre and post. Okay, is the scenario clear? Now you see the numbers here in this problem. The company averaged 90 grievances per year, 70%. 63 of these go to the third level before settlement. The average time required by management, other than the HR managers, operational supervisors, to deal with the grievance that goes to the third level is 10 hours. The management wage is there. The management wages $50 per hour on average, add $500 to the cost of each grievance. In addition, union representatives spend an average of 7.5 hours at $25 per hour for a cost of $187.5 per grievance. So that's the cost pre. The reason for this is that the union representative wages, the consultants, are considered paid time. Post-training only, you see the difference now. 8 grievances go to the, from 90 to 8 grievances, sorry, 63 to 8 grievances go to the third level. The cost of training, so considering all the incidental cost, miscellaneous cost, direct cost, opportunity cost, indirect cost, everything, so cumulative, $32,430. This is the cost of training. So now we have to use the formula to find out the ROTE percentage. The formula is this: total savings minus cost by cost into 100. Okay, so this is the formula. What is the time now? Okay, we have 5 minutes. All right. So let us quickly solve this. Okay. So any doubts you quickly ask? This is the solution. Cost saving for grievance reduction training. Okay, so the training is grievance reduction training.
Ma'am, can you please go back to the last slide once?
Like this. Yeah. You can take a small picture and you can read this and associate this with the solution. Shall I move on?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. So now you have the picture in your mobile and you can now relate this to the solution. Okay, so management time at third level, we have seen it's 10 hours per grievance. Okay, so pre-training, 63 grievances used to go to the third level. That's what we have seen.
Yes.
Each grievance, they used to spend 10 hours. So what is total hour? 630 hours. That is for the management.
Yeah.
Post-training, we have seen only 8 grievances were going to the third level.
80 hours.
Or 80 hours. So at the management level, this is the calculation. Now let's go to the consultant or the union representative time. Okay. So we were saying that 7.5 hours each one of them were taking. So pre-training 63 into 7.5, it is 472 hours. Okay. And post-training, it was going to the third level, only 8 count. So 7.5 hours into 8, which is 60 hours.
60 hours.
Okay. So what is the total cost now? Total cost is 630 hour into the, they used to charge some amount, right?
Yes,
Management 50 per hour.
50
And consultant 25 per hour.
25.
Right?
Yeah.
So now you add 630 into 50, which is 31,500. Pre. And again 472 into 25, which is 812. Pre. You add them up. So what is the total cost? Pre. 43,312. I'll go slow. You please check if you are working out.
Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Okay. So post-training, same formula, same calculation, 80 into 50 and 60 into 25. So 5500. So you can see what is the cost saving now. So cost saving formula is simple, 43 minus 5. I'm just telling the absolute numbers. 43,312 minus 5500, which is the total savings, cost savings is 37,812. Now in the formula, in the problem we saw the total cost of training. It's already mentioned.
Yeah.
32, 430.
430.
Okay. Now I made this simpler because actually the scenario had even the cost. It's a huge, I think, half-page or one-page problem itself. Okay, wherein they even did not tell what is the total cost in one line. They actually gave direct cost, indirect cost, opportunity cost, training room cost, everything. So I actually made it simpler for you. So the total cost of training is eventually was coming to 32,430. Okay, so this is the cost of training. Now, net cost saving for the first year. For the first year, so 37,812 minus the cost. This is what the formula is in ROTI also.
Yes.
Okay, so 5382 you see. Okay, 5382. So 5382, are you getting the number? 5382?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
382 divided by the cost. That is what is the ROTI formula. That is the ratio. Now we have to find out the percentage. So by 100, 16% roughly, 16.6%. So the interpretation is that the training could still have been much better. Another interpretation is that we could have still curtailed on the cost, because a lot of this percentage or ratio is dependent on the cost. Both the parameters, both numerator as well as denominator. Improvement in the quality of the training, which is impacting directly on the cost savings, on the numerator, and taking care of the cost as an input, which is again showing in the denominator, which is 32,430. So working on both improvement on the quality of the training and taking care on the reduction of the cost. If that is actioned, then we might see a significant improvement in the ROTI percentage. Yes or no? Agreed? Not agreed?
Yes, ma'am.
What about others?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so again, we have to do a
Yes, ma'am.
dipstick. We again have to go back to the descriptive. We again have to go back to the diagnostic. We again have to go back to some predictives and write the action plan for the next training program. It is a time-consuming affair, but if you have resources dedicated, to find out all this demand, supply, capacity planning, utilization percentage, utilization rate, productivity increase, right? Savings, cost savings, a bird's eye view, I would say an eagle's view, okay, of the cost. An eagle's view also of the the measurables, the good measures, sorry, the hard measures and the soft measures, right? If you're able to do a data modeling properly, again, tree structure, connecting the nodes, I gave multiple examples, right? So actioning on several of these areas will actually help us to arrive at something which is called ROTI percentage. All right. Okay, so typically we have to present the data to the management like this. If you have too many Excel sheets, it will be very complicated for them, right? So for each node, you can actually have graphs like this so that it becomes self-explanatory. You also would be able to immediately relate to the Excel sheet and explain, give recommendations, the way forwards, the action plans, learnings, what went right, what went wrong, right? All of that. This we are going to take up in the next class. Okay, but however, as reading you can always do and come. So I'll close today's session. I will hand it over to Mr. Ashok.
Yeah, polling is launched. Can stop the recording.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please go ahead.